The Axis Confederate Alliance meeting on 123659-2678 is now in session, the Organic Prime Minister said. It takes several minutes for the murmuring to die down. The ever-patient Prime Minister takes the time to clean their antenna, a nervous tick that only invites more soft murmurs across the hall. The Prime Minister calls out once more, "Order, order, order." By the call of the gathered will, the hall falls into silence. We are here today to hear testimony on incident UL 2563-4289-25682-12024 regarding case SS 126593 Homo sapien. That occurred on the central date of 1236-39-1892. Civil Fleet Chief Captain Tshirt Oknoi Simflopin. Please advise the gathered on what has happened. A quadrupedal creature covered in fur and scale stands up. It uses its dorsal and ventral limbs to make a circular salute. It approaches an illuminated circle at the center of the hall. It steps in and winces as metallic cables lift from the floor and connect to various points along its body. The raspy, multi-layered voice of Captain Lopin echoes throughout the hall as a hologram fills the space. I was sent to investigate a planet covered mostly in and comprising of dihydrogen monoxide. It had produced carbon-based life forms of untold variety. However, we were there to investigate a species that had broken the quantum barrier, Homo sapien, or as the natives called it, humans. They were on the cusp of entering the quantum stage. As per tradition and divine right, I was sent to domesticate and civilize these savages, to make sure they integrated into the Alliance, per its divine tenets. When my fleet arrived in the orbit of their planet, we noticed a disturbing lack of planetary defenses and orbital stations. We only found 3 primitive stations. They could not produce artificial gravity or replicate matter. It had confused our exobiologists and anthropologists. The representative of the Bureau of Native Integration and Assimilation, BNIA, Nolik or Veyok, was very confused and concerned. She believed we did not have enough agents and officers to bring these hairless prime apes up to code for subjects of the Alliance. I recited the first Ornigig tenet: learn, act, see, and live like the Ornigig. You are a perfect example of what savages can become. You have risen above the falsehoods of your primitive mind, rising to enlightenment for our techniques and guidance. I hope these humans will realize and rise to the occasion. She bowed deeply to the floor. You honor me with such kind words. I waved her off in acceptance. I ordered the fleet to encompass this tiny planet and monitor the primitive, guttural languages they used, in order to find the most compatible language that we could stoop to use. Our ascension officers of the BNIA found one in a government city-state of Basile. I did not commit the unclean language name to memory. It was the closest to our divine tongue, so that other, less evolved species could learn it without undoing BNIA's work. I had the fleet follow procedure and stayed in orbit for 3 solar rotations, sending one-way communications expressing our intent and desire to help. We did not interfere with the primitive world's so-called civilizations. We merely returned the ones that were in orbit to the planet, and gently dissuaded the inhabitants from sending any more of their kind to space. It was a long 3 solar rotations, as their rotations are 235 more days than ours. However, we did not waste that time. We found out that the humans had 195 distinct tribes, comprising over 3,800 cultures. The BNIA worked tirelessly to tailor the education program for each tribe and culture. We downloaded and studied their history, culture, and depths of their information networks. We studied their primitive militaries and their tactics. We watched as they fought over resources and alliances were made and broken. They scrambled to build a defense against us. We allowed them to send probes to get scans, to show our superiority. They did their best to build bunkers and civilian safe houses. Their media changed as we naturally became front and center of their minds, as it should be. When the time came to civilize this savage species, we thought ourselves prepared. Our officers ran drills to rehone their skills with the Weaver Quantum Nanites version 204.9 system. BNIA prepared primitive plant cellulose-based education materials. They had readied the dropships for re-education centers and camps. We were at the peak of readiness for Sea Day. My fleet performed their duties with efficiency and professionalism. I recommend that all members of my fleet receive medals for valor, effectiveness and duties, becoming of Ornagik. I recommend all enlightened crew members for full citizenship. Letters of commendation to be filed for their respective species. Then the moment came. We launched Operation SS-12659 Free Homo Sapien. Our ships descended to their assigned landing zones, wading through primitive kinetic, plasma, electromagnetic and thermonuclear weapons. We had to deploy radiation scrubbers because those savages did not know the damage they were doing to their home. After we landed and established our cities, we began the education and ascension protocols. We neutralized their warrior classes and tribes within 6 planetary rotations. However, not without heavy losses to our enlightened and mechanized ranks. The savages fought with a bravery that would make any Ornagik proud. Their ever-changing tactics and styles of warfare kept us on our toes. But ultimately, they could not prevail against the Axis Confederate Alliance military, nor the superiority of the Ornagik way. The hall erupted in cheers. The patriotic spirit fills every being in attendance. The Prime Minister allows everyone their moment of joy. The captain stood there quietly. Members noticed the somber look on the captain's face. They quieted down. Cheers gave way to small conversations, to murmurs, to silence. The captain waits uncomfortably long before continuing. We killed all their storytellers, cultural content creators, authors and songwriters. Anyone who can visualize the world's connections and shape them. Per the second tenant of Ornagik. Only the Ornagik are true weavers of the universe. All other only contaminate the weave. This was the first mistake. The second was assuming that the warrior caste was limited to their military. After we established our rule on the planet, we removed all juveniles from their parents and brought them to the education centers as per procedure. Any resistance was deemed as inferior traits and was eliminated from the populace. We began the long-term domestication procedures. As we have done in all enlightened worlds, we assumed it would be easy, as humans have done it with lesser fauna before. We assumed they would welcome being domesticated by the Ornagik. This was our third mistake. The Weaver was more in tune with their young. Our tests were not designed to detect such high levels of looming. The adolescents allowed us to bring them in and teach them. They did their best to fit in and serve us. We could not believe their progress within the education system. No doubt thanks to the rigorous education system that the humans had employed throughout their world. We were complacent, assured of our superiority. The adolescents were prepared to give us anything we wanted. Their minds and their bodies for us to do with as we wished, but not their spirits. They took abuse after abuse. They fulfilled every request just like their precious dogs, lulling us into a false sense of security. They even killed their own to win favor. Unknowingly, the humans hacked our databases during those 3 solar rotations and discovered our plans. They had trained their children and adolescents to forego their own futures and paths to become sleeper agents, spies and soldiers. These children gave up everything to defeat us. I cannot express the awe I have for their dedication. They spent the first 5 solar rotations being the most obedient savage race we had ever enlightened. They took over positions of other races, becoming assistants, guards, personal companions, concubines, anything we asked of them, never betraying their true intentions. Then it began. It was slow at first. A warehouse of Weaver QN 204.9 disappeared, then another and another. They masked their absence with hit-and-run tactics and computer warfare. They spaced out and timed it with natural disasters and large storms. It was always portrayed as the planet's Weaver's desire. Their adolescents, now young adults, would reassure our various leaders that it was common to have large storms sweep away coastal cities and villages. This caused us to move our settlements to the interior of the larger land masses. away from the oceans and off the small islands. This played right into the humans' plans. When the 10th solar rotation dawned, the humans were ready. They had reverse-engineered our technology, disseminating it throughout their resistance cells, which included the humans in our settlements. The ones that served our daily meals, entertained us, took care of our children and worked in our factories. Our rule ended in a whisper. To be more precise, a text message. Remember the stories and songs of our ancestors. Remember the games, legends, movies, shows, plays, and books of the past. Teach these colonists the meaning of fear. Give no mercy. Today we are not people. We are not animals. We are not death. We are vengeance. Fear-induced silence gripped everyone. Only the soft patter of tears could be heard, as the captain wept in the memories that he was being forced to live again. He took deep breaths through his dorsal vents and continued. At first it was slow. In the area that used to be called Europe, citizens began to disappear at night. Reports of creatures of fur and teeth standing over 6 meters tall. The mutilated corpses were found the next day, reformed and strung up on poles and across lights. Soft blue lights would lead citizens to their deaths. Headless riders and equine species would be seen visiting households, leaving carnage in their wake. We sent patrol after patrol, restricted movement of the humans, removed them from all positions of power, or close to any organic of power. We installed martial law, executed all criminals. Nothing worked. Then, in former Africa, creatures that seemed to be enormous prime apes of the lesser evolved branch of the hominid line would rampage for our settlements, then retreat and disappear into the dense forests and jungles. Ethereal creatures would possess our citizens, causing them to have sieges so violent that it would break internal and external skeletons. And then we would find others that seemed to have slept well, only to have small bite marks. Their bodies were drained of all liquids. In the colder regions, their dead would not stay dead. We would kill them, over and over. We could cut them up, and their individual parts would keep moving, seeking to tear us apart and feast on our innards. This continued in every region. Our scientists could not find any flora or fauna that matched the descriptions in the reports that the Central Governance was receiving. It was an anthropologist from one of the lesser enlightened species that figured it out. All the descriptions were of creatures from the humans' legends. We were fighting in the weave of the human race. We sent out warnings to our military units, authorizing index-free weapons. The gathering gasped and murmured. Knowing that index-free weapons were only for internal conflict and dealing with alien forces on par with the organic, the captain coughs and resumes. We found one of their strongholds in catacombs of the former seat of the Vatican government. We raided it, only to find them mass-producing our technology, especially the Weaver QN204.9. In those dark tunnels, our valiant soldiers fought off creatures known as devils and demons, along with winged humanoids known as angels. We performed an orbital bombardment of the surrounding land, sinking the peninsula into the sea. The captain took a long breath. This was the dinner bell, as the humans would say. Every media channel was filled with the media from before our arrival, showing what the humans called anime, movies, TV shows, and video games. Not a planetary rotation later, large mechanized humans emerged from the former country of Japan, along with reptiles, insects, and prime apes. Kaiju, I believe one of the lesser called them. Along with humans with tails covered in various colored energy fields, they could lift tanks, shoot plasma, and fly at speeds reserved for space travel. From the Russian region came a myriad of horrific creatures, including humans standing 3 meters tall in mechanical suits with guns that would rip through our armor. They called them Komikeski Desantnik. The same came out of each region, males and females of the species growing and becoming these monsters of soldiers. Then there were the flying reptiles that could breathe fire, ice, acid, lightning, and many other elemental forces. They were aided by creatures with multiple eyes that could shoot beams of death. I do not have the time nor the memory to describe the whole of what attacked us that day. To say they killed all of my troops, settlers, servants, and anyone who defended us. That was not the worst of it. Those children and adolescent humans we took in, taught, cared for, and trusted. Each took their time ripping their families apart, defining my definition of horror after seeing the aftermath. I lost my entire clan to the three I had considered my own family. One, who turned into a 3-meter tall emaciated human with a skull for a face and a large ornate headdress of blue and red, feathers and disembodied human limbs worn as decoration. He killed the guards and servants. Lila, a quiet and obedient female who was in charge of my broodlings, who had hand-raised them from eggs. She was like their second mother. She turned into a blue-skinned human with countless arms and carried severed heads of humans and citizens alike. She ate all the broodlings and my various mates. She even killed and ate the ones that she and I sired. Finally, there was Morchin, a studious male that helped me manage my days. I did not know what I would do without him. He did not transform. Instead, his clothing changed into that of his culture's past. He did not move from his desk. He just pulled out a scroll from thin air and listed those who died because of my rule over Earth, etching the last moments of each human into my mind. The weight of his presence and his piercing gaze kept me locked in place. My own weave was no match for his. After he was done, he judged me and gave me my punishment. To see the death of each of my citizens in my empire, as he put it. How they died and what they felt. For those memories to never fade, to remain fresh in my mind. The worst part was when he said I would live. I would live a long life, longer than most. He gave me the human will and resolve to survive. The hall remained silent. The Prime Minister banged his fist out of habit, before noticing that not a single member in attendance made a noise. They cleared their throat. I am having a hard time believing you. A species with a greater weave than ours? We, who were given the divine right to change the weave in our minds and force the universe to bend to it. We who move the galaxy forward, bring civilized rule to worlds. We who advance technology, art and science. We who can tell stories that move mountains. We who sing songs that make the heavens weep. We have lost to a savage species who had not even moved off their home world. I am telling you, you have already lost. You ended your reign when you darkened our skies. You weave, we imagine. You change, we create. You bring nature to heal, we force it to change. Our stories inspire. Our songs make souls shudder and weep. We can and will make any species soar on the wings of hope. What you gave us is the ability to make our imaginations real, to change the universe to our liking, to change the fundamental rules of reality. For that, we thank you, a blue female human says, as she strides out of a portal in space, followed by a skeletal human with a headdress and a human in flowing garments and armor. The captain cowers in the circle. He croaks out, "These are the chosen judges of our species." The gathering erupts in chaos. Every creature attempting to escape the hall. Morchin looks at the gathering and gives a firm but soft command. Sit. Everyone sits where they once stood. More portals open up. Humans of various builds, ethereal beings and creatures of every colour and form appear. Lila moves to the large, towering dais on which the Prime Minister presides. She leaps up to it, in one smooth motion, separating the Minister's head from his body, throwing the rest to the floor. She holds it up, all to see. Her voice rings out. We are humanity's stolen generation. The generation you took, you abused. You attempted to strip down and tame through violence of the body and mind. We will be your judges. The Ornigic will face the judgment of thousands of years and millions of worlds. Our past had humans that acted like you, treated others like you do. Those civilizations are gone. We have all passed it. We will take this gift that you forced on us and make the universe better. Starting with the Ornigic and all who supported, aided or even joined them. You will be wiped from the galaxy. Your history will be preserved as a warning to others. You came to domesticate us. We come to free the universe from you. To all who suffer under the rule of the Ornigic, rise, raise your limbs and voices, sing and have hope. We will soon be there. We will liberate you.